I talked to former New York Congressman Ed Towns, who was once the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, who was in the House when this happened with work requirements for welfare recipients during the Clinton years. He said it didn't work then and it won't work now. He said it's going to create pain and suffering. And he said this should have been done during the budget process versus now. What do you say to this congressman who was there, who actually was a congressman who Hakeem Jeffries filled his seat? What do you say to that congressman and others who feel that this is pain and suffering that you're eliciting on those who are the least of these in this nation?
So that is not how we see this process. We believe that we protected the economic gains that this president made. If you think about the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act. And if you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, it is going to help lower costs for families, healthcare costs. Is going to help our seniors when it comes to insulin. Cap that at $35. That's going to help many seniors in those very communities that we're talking about that truly need it. Energy costs, those are incredibly important for American families across the country. Think about the Chips and Science Act, right? You think about the PACT Act and our veterans. This is what the president was able to do, is to protect those types of historic pieces of legislation that is going to make a difference in American lives. And not only that, is going to protect programs that hardworking Americans need, right? We were talking about potentially cutting Medicaid, which would have taken healthcare away from 21 million Americans. We protected that, right? So all of those things are important. Veterans Affairs, protecting that's important. When you think about creating SNAP eligibility expansion for veterans, for homeless people, for young people coming out of foster care of all ages, is going to protect, it's going to expand that. So there are things in this budget, bipartisan budget agreement, that is so important to those everyday people, to those hardworking Americans. That is incredibly important. Look, here's the reality. When you negotiate in this way, no one's going to get everything that they want. That is just a reality of negotiating. What the president tried to do is protect the gains that he made, historic gains that he made these last 2 years, and really key core democratic values that we believe is important to American families. And that is the promise that this president made, and that's what we're hoping will move forward as we look at the House and we look at the Senate, and the president wants to get this done before June 5th.
Follow up on this, though. Did the White House do a compare and contrast to yesterday, understanding Republicans had asked and received work requirements during the Clinton years? Did the administration look into that to see the successes, lessons learned, etc.? And also to the congressman who was also the former head of oversight, the first Black head of oversight and government reform, he questions once again what efforts, how exhaustive were the efforts to not have this in this moment instead of dealing with it in the budget, putting it in the budget discussion moment. Why now?
So look, the reason we're in this situation now, if we remember correctly, right, if we remember that March 9th, the president put forth his budget. He was very clear about how he saw the values for showing the values to the American people, how we move forward with our economy. And about 6-7 weeks later, it took Republicans 6 or 7 weeks to pass their budget on April 26th. So this is a conversation that we were ready to have weeks ago. But it took some time for Republicans to put forth what their budget looks like, or what they perceive their values are, and showing that to the American people. Look, I want to go back to the workers' requirement question that you asked. I mentioned the 21 million Americans who we protected, the president was able to protect from losing their health care. There's food assistance that was at risk for nearly 1 million Americans, and it put critical support at risk for 1 million vulnerable children. That's what that's what the House Republican bill, that's what it threatened. And so these are the things that the president was able to protect. Look, again, it is important, we believe, for Americans to not lose their health care. And that's what the president was able to do. Look, the president's insistence that the GOP proposal for SNAP is temporary. And the bill includes a major expansion again for veterans, for homeless, for people who are homeless, for former foster youth. All of those things truly matter. And the combined impact of these provisions is that the number of people subject to SNAP work requirements will likely stay roughly the same. And so that's another thing that's important to note. When you look at the TANF policies in the bill, maintain states' ability to support vulnerable children. So that's what we were able to do. That's what the president was able to protect. And those things are incredibly important as we talk about, as we look at working families, hardworking families across the country.